Hello and welcome to a breaking news bulletin. The first one I have been fortunate or unfortunate enough to be hosting. I was in the middle of just downing my wee microwave pizza as you do on a Friday afternoon, Russell, post bulletin. And now I'm not feeling too well. Folk might think I've been greeting into my microwave pizza. I have not been, as Tony will tell you. I was fighting through the pain barrier to get on to the lunchtime bulletin. But the reason we are here, the Eddie Howe deal is off. Thoughts, Russell?
Well, it is a wee bit disappointing, obviously, and I get all that, but I'm a man of many buses, Laura, and with great travesty becomes opportunity. And I think this is a Dominic Mackay entertainment enterprise we're seeing right now. I think he's called Howe's bluff. And I think it was about time Celtic said it's either put up or shut up. And the understanding is there's a plan B well underway, which excites me because it tells you that perhaps Celtic were feeling the same way as the fans were. If this ain't going to happen, we need to get our finger out. And it looks like, it could be a really exciting couple of days ahead with whoever it is that's named now. But if Eddie Howe doesn't want to be at Celtic, Celtic shouldn't want Eddie Howe. Sod it.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement with that. Some of the stuff I'm reading, although none of it is 100% substantiated, but some of the stuff seems to suggest, like you said, that perhaps patience on both sides was running out, and so we've ended up in the situation we are in. Tony, Russell is the bus driver, and usually you wait for one bus and three come along at once. We have been waiting for one bus and zero have come along. What were your first reactions when it started to become concrete that the deal was off, given that we have literally only a couple of hours ago been talking about the fact that couldn't happen? That would be a catastrophic failure if it did.
I was just wondering if your pizza was a margarita. See what I did there?
Excellent.
Anyway, I had that sick pit of the stomach feeling you get when this was rumoured to have collapsed. Now, I know there's fault from what the information I'm getting, that there's fault on both sides. I can't be as enthusiastic as Russell because I was really excited about Howe. Mm-hmm. And I thought for once they did their due diligence and everything was, that they had got on that bus, for want of a better expression, and everyone was on it and everything was going to be announced in the fullness of time during the first or whenever. But to court a manager for 90 days and then on the cusp of the weekend you're supposed to break that news to then pull the plug or issue some kind of ultimatum, it staggers belief, the total and utter ineptitude. Now, there's two sides to every story. I get that, backroom team issues possibly, but Celtic, honest to goodness, just when you think that they're getting their act together, they pull that rug away from you. Russell's being a wee bit more positive than I could be, but at this moment in time, I can't find any other managerial candidate that'll excite me the way potentially Howe did. I'm going to have to get behind it because that's what you do.
Exactly.
Right, that's what you do. But I think I'll be in the majority of a lot of Celtic supporters who just feel so disconnected, so disenfranchised, and so bitterly disappointed about what's happened today. And how can the next candidate really say that he's anything other than second choice or a plan B or a contingency plan? Because no one at the club had said anything about Eddie Howe. Eddie Howe hadn't said anything either, but they seem to be so far down the line with it. To fail at this stage, it's staggering. It really, really is. It really, really does beg a belief. And again, we're probably not going to get the full story. It'll be bits and bobs, and unless someone actually comes out and blows it out the water and says, "Look, this is what happened," And I'm trying to couch my disappointment. My insides are screaming from the rafters and they're swearing like a trooper. But I'm on a podcast, so you just don't do that.
Yeah, we had been made aware, let's put it that way, that this was in the offing just literally minutes before we went on air for the bulletin, but it wasn't substantiated at that point, so we held off from saying anything about it. But I think I speak for myself and Tony when I say it really took the wind out of ourselves for starting the show this afternoon. We were kind of down in the doldrums and had to rely on a conversation about Javi Sanchez Broto to lift us again. So, but Russell, Tony raised a really good point about whoever the second place person is, and at this point we don't know who that is. We're apparently, if rumours are to be believed, reasonably far down the line of who the second choice is. Two things. Do you think that being so publicly second choice is going to affect that person's desire to take the job? And even if they do take the job, do you think it has any effect on them once they're in it?
I've said a few times on the show that I believe that whoever, if it's not Eddie Howe now, because we were so far down the road, as Tony says, that it was going to be, it's going to be Ronnie Deila Mark 2 sort of territory you're worried about, because everyone knew Ronnie Deila was not the Celtic choice to be the manager that summer. He wasn't. It's that straightforward. It's that simple. He was hired to be the assistant manager. I think in this instance, though, a lot of strength can come from this, and I think Celtic fans are going to either go two ways. They're going to look at this guy as second choice, and like I've just touched on there, and you were only the second bet, mate. You were never really the guy we wanted, yada, yada. Fair. I totally get that. The flip side is, let's galvanise the support and go, this guy wants to be at Celtic more than Eddie Howe did. Eddie Howe has had a year, near enough, 8 months, whatever. November, I think, the first time he was approached. If we're all being honest, there was talks then, or there was an interest then that was made aware to him. We all know it. So he's had long enough to mull over this. If Celtic ain't for you, mate, bolt. I don't care. I would rather get someone in who wants to be at Celtic. And I think Tony said this in the pod enough times. This is a job that is desirable for people who want to make it in management. This will not now, and because it's such a car crash, the way it's all came to an end, and it is, not a bus crash, you could say. But I mean, because it is such a disaster, right? Celtic cannot go for a Jack Ross, for example. It seems to be this template, B-side sort of option. Celtic will need to now step up, and whoever the second plan is, to me, strikes me as a Dominic Mackay production. And I'm quite excited to see what Dominic Mackay's plan B was the whole time. And if I think Dominic Mackay has been the man who's called Eddie Howe's bluff today, finally, then he's doing that for the best interest of Celtic. This had dragged on far too long. This has went on and on and on. And if you actually, and your revisionism will happen with this as well, remember, the same way we've talked about Brendan Rodgers leaving, and now we kind of look at it from two sides of the spectra. I think right now it's easy to blame Celtic. My gut feeling was I would blame Celtic, if I'm being honest. That was what my gut told me. I'm trying to be philosophical about it as well, though, and go, do you know what? The ball's in both parties' court here. It strikes me now Celtic have finally made their move and said it's take it or leave it time. If he says leave it, whoever it is that comes in wants this job more than Eddie Howe did. So for me, he automatically replaces him as first choice.
I'm coming down on that sort of way of thinking as far as you're concerned as well, and thinking that my attitude is the same with players as it is with managers, as it is with anybody. If you don't want to be at Celtic Football Club, then and that's not me saying, oh, I never wanted him anyway. I wanted Eddie Howe. I firmly wanted Eddie Howe. If you asked me right now if we could say something or do something that would change his mind, I would do it. But the point of the matter is, as you said, I'm not particularly fussed if it takes us 9 months to convince him and he still doesn't want to go. Tony, you've said it enough times. What do you make of what Russell said there? Are you, once you're over the initial disappointment, are you particularly fussed if it turns out that, If he's going to be so hard to convince to come to Celtic, do we want him anyway?
I want to know if he was that hard to convince to come to Celtic, because the overtures you're getting was that Eddie Howe was quite keen on this. It's the backroom staff that maybe weren't so keen.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't come without them, type thing. So I would like to know if that was the case, because before I say anything disparaging towards Eddie Howe, he might have fancied the challenge, and told them to wait until such times when he could put the Bournemouth pieces in place, playing devil's advocate, of course.
Yeah.
And then something along that line somebody's went no, like the physio guy the other day was forced to say, I'm not going to Celtic. So if he's wanted a plethora of staff, it just takes one for that whole dynamic to come rushing down, and because he wanted tried and tested people he'd worked with before, and he wanted to bring him in, and then maybe that puts doubt in his mind, and then it's like, well, as Russell says, call your bluff time, and it's went, look, I can't guarantee these guys. Well, I need to say no as well. No.
Well, I guess to pick up on, sorry, Tony, I guess to pick up on what you're saying there, I mean, we've all sat for the last year or so talking about the fact that Neil Lennon didn't get everybody he wanted in his backroom staff, and that was a big reason he failed. So you can't say that and in the same breath then say, but we expect Eddie Howe to come without everybody that he wants. But sorry, carry on.
These conversations happened though, guys. He's not found out now, has he?
No, well, Bournemouth's season's just finished, so he's maybe been
talked to them though, surely, Tony.
Yeah, but that's the thing, isn't it? So I'm only saying that the guy might have been keen, and with all these boxes in place. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying the same, Laura. Yeah, I'm not having a go. I'm saying you want your backroom team in, don't you? The guys you tried and tested, and if it takes one for that whole dynamic to come crashing down, as I've said, and collapse. Now, if I'm Dominic Mackay, the only thing, well, not the only thing, but something that would excite me now is somebody like Nuno Espirito Santo, something like that. Right? Now, I'm not saying it's him, but I think it's the only other name that I've seen around who's available, and it seems to excite a lot of Celtic supporters. So you have to, and I don't know who Dominic Mackay is the second choice or plan B.
First choice.
Can I just say before we carry on, I think this is aimed at me, but it did make me laugh. James Cunningham on YouTube has said, "Shut up, Meg." So for anybody who's a fan of Family Guy, that might tickle them.
That's hard.
I think the majority of Celtic supporters' overriding emotion right now is one of utter, I don't say devastation, that's probably too harsh, but it's a feeling of desolation, certainly. You just don't know where the club's going to go from now on. And Dominic Mackay has had a plan B, then it better be a good one. He better put some rabbit out of a hat, because the Celtic supporters ain't going to put up with a Jack Ross or a Steve Clark. They're just not when they had their mindset on someone like Eddie Howe. Now, I've said Nuno Espirito only because I know he's available and a lot of people like Wolves, but a lot of people also say that Wolves were very boring as well.
Yeah.
Whenever I watched them, I thought they looked decent. They had some decent players and they seemed to be well coached and well drilled. So, that's a guy that's available that's had minor success in the English Premier League. So, again, Russell, you like the phrase, a person of interest, possibly, or a manager of interest, a coach of interest, but, where do they go? You've heard Lampard's name being mentioned. Celtic supporters would run a mile from that. There's only one set of people that want, and that's Sky, and I would never appoint a manager to please a TV station or a company. No chance. So he's at, in my opinion, he's at the reckoning. So where do you go? What candidates are left? You mentioned Lucien Favre, Laura, who'd been mentioned in dispatches. Are Celtic that switched on to think about him? I'm not so sure. We are now entering only an excuse territory again, which was about there'll be no panic buy-in, just panic. Right? Remember that clip?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's where we are. how we've allowed ourselves to do this again. We don't seem to learn from previous mistakes in anything.
No.
We managers, players, deals. The common denominator, Celtic. How can they not conclude a deal?
Yep.
They seem to be the only football club that can't conclude a deal, or deals or protracted, or sagas, or their long drawn out affairs. No other football club seems to suffer from this affliction, to my knowledge.
And this is where as well I think you have to, I'm loath to do it, but you have to give Rangers their credit. They managed to attract Steven Gerrard, who, say what you want about his managerial experience when he took the job, he is a high profile football person who I'm sure had opportunities to go elsewhere. They managed to get that deal done, and so far it has proven successful for them. So yeah, I think it is a very much a Celtic trait that we seem to not be able to close these deals. Russell, I'm going to put it to you, and I say this knowing that I'll probably get slagged in the comments for saying it. It's just
Bring
a
it
hypothetical.
on, Laura,
It's a
bring it
hypothetical.
on.
It's a hypothetical, but you know, we talked about there that potentially either Howe or certain members of his backroom staff might not have seen Celtic as a desirable option. We'll say not Eddie Howe for the sake of being pragmatic, but if Yogi Hughes became our manager, you can bet your bottom dollar there will be no person out there more proud to be the Celtic manager than Yogi Hughes that is available just now. Now, he might not be the calibre that we want. He might not be the profile that we want. But surely there's something to be said for somebody who knows the magnitude of the role that they're in and the expectation of that role. What do you make of that as a kind of just a devil's advocate argument?
No, I totally understand where you're coming from. It won't be Yogi Hughes, right? We'll be clear on that. But I think, you know, Yogi Hughes is almost guilty just by being a big, bubbly, friendly guy that people probably don't take seriously enough for his achievements on the park, which is actually extraordinary what he did with both Falkirk and Inverness Cali Thistle. If folk actually did their history on it and the type of football they played. If you ask anyone who played against these teams, he gets teams playing good football. And again, another box tick this season for him. I think it's important that the manager that comes in can be, like you're saying, like, you know, like we're hoping, we did a great pod on Monday, Tony, talked about players we want to join Celtic that want to play for Celtic. So absolutely, there's something to be said for getting a manager that wants to be at Celtic and not seeing it as this stepping stone FC. I can't believe I'm saying all that again. I thought those days were gone. But if Eddie Howe at any point has been looking at it like that, or his backroom team have looked at that, and Eddie Howe's that desperate he needs every single one of them, sod it. That's life. We move on. And do you know what? See whoever gets the job is going to grab it by the scuff now, and they're going to get backed. They're going to the backing. I think the backing they'll double down on. I think they'll now, because Celtic going to know they've obviously made a shambles of it. That statement when they'd said they hoped to announce the manager was the first step of Celtic calling Eddie Howe's bluff and saying, look, this is how real this is now. You're going to need to make your mind up. And today has been the final nail in the coffin on the deal. But what really intrigues me, right, if we want to really stir the pot today, why not? This is an impromptu show. Who the hell did sell Patrick Klimala? And who the heck has decided who's been getting, either if your Lee Griffith's not getting a new contract or not? Because it certainly was not, as we'd perhaps hoped in the background, was Eddie working his magic. You know, there's been this tale that we've all wanted to believe, myself included, that Eddie Howe was doing a lot of work in the background, maybe not in title as manager, but because he couldn't officially start, but he was still, it's his hallmarks. He's setting. Turns out it wasn't. It's now proven it wasn't. So who's making these calls at Celtic right now?
So you can't escape the fact, Russell, that from that, and you're deducting all that from your deducements then, is the club not a bit of a laughing stock today? I don't like my club being like that. Clubs are a laughing stock today. People are laughing at Celtic today for the fact that the Eddie Howe deal's off. Don't care what MD says. They need to produce something spectacular now, Because anything now's a bit of a step down from Eddie Howe when
No, I agree.
he was in that mindset.
I think you're right, Tony. I think unless they're literally sitting there going, aye, but we've got Rafa in the back pocket, you know.
Correct. It's only something like that would kind of give you some kind of hope moving forward that actually they do have a clue what they're doing here, or they were wise to not put all the eggs in Eddie Howe basket. If it's a Rafa or something,
sure.
Yeah, but you just know it's not going to be. And our club today has been dragged through the gutter again. People laughing at it. People say, it's hopeless, just those at the top, and getting half-baked stories here and there. Whatever's happened, they've failed to conclude a deal, a major deal, a manager that everybody thought could be of the Brendan Rodgers ilk and do something similar. That's how the esteem that he was held in. That's the bar that we thought we'd set ourselves. That's the highest calibre manager candidate that we could possibly have attracted. Seemed to have attracted them, or that was the kind of the vibe that we were getting. And again, Celtic's failure to conclude that. I hate my club being a laughingstock for any reason at all. And it doesn't make good reading, it doesn't make good viewing. I don't particularly like having to sit here and discuss the fact that another deal has been scuppered by Celtic for whatever reason. It's deja vu. It's deja vu. And I say again to the people at the top, my thoughts from a few months ago about the St. Francis prayer, about joy and discord and disharmony, they've done it again. Just when your hopes were being built up, they've just pulled the rug from your feet. And if Celtic, you're probably a more positive Celtic supporter than me. There is no positive spin or optimism that I can find from this today.
I'm going to give you one. Can I give you one?
Go on then.
Right.
You need to.
Right, let me. I believe that Eddie Howe was part of the Lawwell era and is the final remembering ember of that empire crumbling and us not being able to get a deal over the line. I believe whoever the next appointment is going to become a Dom Mackay production, and this is the first time we have seen someone else take the reins off Lawwell. Now, getting deals over the line has been Celtic's problem. There is instances over the last few years we could discuss for hours. We've both spoke to tears talking about John McGinn and stuff, all that nonsense, Ivan Toney, the lot. This, to me, is the final reason it's been highlighted in an embarrassing manner, Tony, and I couldn't agree more. I think Celtic is a bit of a laughing stock on that basis. But it's now new Celtic, new danger, right? New Celtic, new danger, and Dom Mackay has just took the reins. There's how I'm going to positively spin it.
New Celtic.
You can't help a man for trying, Tony.
New Celtic, no danger. Behave yourself, man. We'll just fail to appoint a manager. No danger.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I admire your optimism and your ability to drive many a bus, but I just can't share it at this moment in time.
Well, here's my thoughts on the whole situation. When the friendlies were announced the other night, I put a tweet up, and I perhaps it was badly worded on my part where I said, "Why would you prioritise friendlies over a new manager?" Now, I'm not naive enough to think that these friendlies haven't been in the planning for months. They have been, obviously. I'm also not naive enough to think that they were prioritising organising friendlies over getting a new manager. The point I was making is, if something like that can take months to arrange, which, by the way, they didn't even announce who the clubs were until later on, so it wasn't even fully arranged when they did announce it. But if that can take months to arrange and they can get to a point where they think that is done and we're going to announce it, then surely for the sake of a few days or a few weeks, especially considering we're, 90 odd days since Neil Lennon left, there should be a process at the club that means back when Neil Lennon was sacked, they should have been able to say, well, one thing we don't want to do is be announcing pre-season plans and season books going out without having a manager in place. That would look really terrible. And yet, we're sitting end of May, going into June, where that looks like that is exactly what has happened. And Tony, like you say, it made us a laughingstock before the Eddie Howe thing was even broken. I said that 2 days ago. We are looking like an unprofessional outfit by managing things in the manner and the order in which we're managing it. There is no way in which they should expect season book holders to shell out £600. Now, I accept that season book holders, myself included when I have had one, it doesn't really matter who the players are on the pitch or who the manager is. I will shell out money to watch Celtic at any time. I will support Celtic, whatever. But can you expect people, in a time where finances are as tight as they are because of the ongoing pandemic, the uncertainty of the new games coming out, the one certainty you could have given them was the name of a manager, the plan for the next season, to say, do you know what, we don't know when you're getting back into this stadium, but when you do, here is what you're going to see.
Yeah,
and the fact that they didn't do that said to me, this isn't happening.
Well,
this is off.
I was going to say, yeah, that strikes you now with hindsight as being, they knew that the deal was off, but they still pressed ahead and asked you for your season ticket money, knowing full well that in the fullness of time they were about to say to you, lights off, all bets are off here. But years' money.
It's mad. It's mad. Have you ever known?
I've never known a business to conduct itself like that in my puff.
And obviously, you've done football journalists for years, right? I'm talking. Let's take Celtic as part of the bigger picture here. Any Scottish football club have you known to take 93 days to not announce a manager? To not announce a manager. I'm not just saying they've not appointed anyone. So they've actually managed to screw up the one that they've spent all that time chasing.
Announce that there is no announcement.
How have you ever seen anything comparable? Is there anything we can go by as a...
The only comparison, and it wasn't as long as that, but remember, before Martin O'Neill came in, there was the Goose Hiddink chase, the Goose Chase, as it was called, and lots of journalists went to Spain to doorstep Goose Hiddink.
Right.
And it turned out to be the wild goose chase, as they say, because it never happened. But again, he was a guy that was supposedly being courted, and then eventually that's when papers would throw money at things and say to a journal, get thee to Spain, doorstep this man, put the question straight in his mouth, and Goose Hiddink was like, nah. It's like, bye now. It's like about time. And then a few weeks or whatever later, Martin O'Neill was announced, but there was a big hoo-ha at the time with Goose Hiddink. Again, Celtic because it took a while before Celtic brought in Martin O'Neill. But
so let's touch on that, Tony. Let's touch on that. So, who think is the most relatable case you can think of? Who did we get?
Fine. Yeah.
What if this happens this time, my man? I'm doing everything I can. I'm trying my best here.
The difference with that, though, is Tony has just said, Russell, that somebody doorstepped Hiddink, and he said that it was never happening. It was never a possibility. How was, for want of a better phrase, and we've heard it used about Ivan Toney, he was in the door. He was in the building, or whatever phrase you want to use. Maybe not physically, but metaphorically. So this is a different situation.
Doesn't change how they reacted, though.
Well,
they still went and got Martin O'Neill.
Yeah.
They still went and do you know what I mean? Like, they still, from the, obviously that's an embarrassing way if they doorstepped to think, and he said it was never on. The backlash was that we then came out stronger, and you would never change Martin O'Neill for Goose Hiddink in a million years. I am hoping and clutching that whoever it is we get is going to have a similar effect. I hear what you're saying, Laura. I do hear what you're saying. I'm just
listen, Davy Murray on YouTube. I've just realised the name that I'm reading out here, but we'll go with it. Davy Murray has said, "Why would your second option be better than the first option?" with a bunch of laughing emojis. Listen, we are sitting here reacting to what is a majorly disappointing piece of news for us as Celtic supporters. We are aware that every other team in Scottish football, every other supporter in Scottish football would be finding that hilarious. As we would if it was happening to other clubs, possibly. You know, so we're just trying to put as positive a spin on things as we can do. Tony,
No.
I think if Celtic know anything about how to manage a situation and how to limit the situation, which we have no idea if they do, but if they do, surely there's got to be an appointment within the next week or so. Surely there's got to be an appointment very, very quickly for this not to spiral out of control any further than it already has.
Any further.
What did I say when all this kicked off? We want an appointment, not a disappointment. I've been given the latter. So what happens now is like it's one of them. It's, do you know what? They have took the jam out my donut today. You know what I mean? They have deflated the balloon. At this moment in time,
they quite literally took the cheese off my microwave pizza with this news.
Correct. Yeah, you know what I mean? So all of those kind of phrases, it's like you just want to go to sleep and wake up and something else happens.
When September ends, as the famous Green Day song would say.
Yes, indeed. And you know, you are sitting here just now like, wow, you know, somebody's punched in the solar plexus. You're just you're winded. You're trying to get up and sort of rub your eyes and say, right, try to think logically about it. We're reacting to a breaking story which affects you as a supporter, but you feel really downbeat about it. Russell's is the most positive and optimistic guy and silver lining on everything that you could possibly find. You know, I'm just being more of a realist, you know, as opposed to an idealist, but that's fine. We're all different, you know, but I just find it hard to find any kind of positive or silver lining at this moment in time. You might, over time, say, dodged a bullet, not getting Howe or whatever, right? But I'm finding it hard to put myself in that frame of mind at this moment in time.
Right,
Russell,
Tony,
you go.
so you say quite often about Celtic acting like a big club.
Yeah.
For me, it taken 95 days or however many days they've been talking to Eddie Howe for. I suspect it's been longer than that anyway. And they never got anything over the line. Has Dominic Mackay started going, do you know what, let's act like a big club. Let's not be held to ransom any longer. It's either you want the job or you don't. And I actually think that it's about time I think it's about time we kind of started not being dependent on EPL managers. You know, like, because he's got a great record, and I know he's a good manager. I'm just being a wee bit bitchy, right? But I think it's about time you go 95 days. Someone put the foot down here and go, do you know what? If you ain't coming, son, we need to move on. Now, to me, that is acting like a big club. I think that's your 95 days of negotiation.
I'll tell you what, you'll find out if you're acting like a big club, if the managerial candidate, your plan B, is ambitious and it's a top level candidate.
Yeah.
You know, because at this moment in time, to my knowledge, it'll be a step down. I could be wrong. Right? If they produce a Rafa, then I would herald the man. I would carry him down London Road myself, Dominic Mackay. And I'm not in very good shape, you know what I mean? So shape if I had to do that. But that's neither here nor there. You know what I mean? So that's the only, something like that was the only thing that could possibly appease you at this moment in time. I just don't think that Dominic Mackay is going to approach a candidate like that. But if he has one in his mind and he's acted swiftly upon it, then I'll give him kudos to that. But it depends who it is.
Mm-hmm. I get that.
All depends on who it is. So
someone smells a rat, though, somewhere with Howe. That's why the bluff's been called. Someone is smelling a rat somewhere and going, do you know what? This isn't adding up anymore. Like, it's not like... so. And if that has been...
But it's taken 93 days to find that out. I mean, that's
more Lawwell, though, isn't it? I would put that more to the previous regime than the new regime. And I'm hoping the change of tact has been either put up or shut up, do you know what I mean, sort of thing, has been the new era dawning on Celtic. And if that's how we're going to do business, I'm all for it.
I don't want a knee-jerk to the fact that Howe said no, and then all of a sudden appoint a guy within 4 days.
No, I mean that wasn't the point I was making. I don't want it to be a knee jerk, but if they have a plan in place, like we say, a plan B,
a bona fide managerial candidate. I don't just want somebody because the clock's ticking, and
yeah,
you know, and it's like we need to fill this position. I want it to be been as thought out and thorough as the Howe deal was. I don't want a wee stall on our right. Well, who else? You know, who can we get? You know, at this moment in time, I don't see that because we spent over 3 months chasing this character, and we were going to spend 3 days chasing Plan B, and then all of a sudden announce him because there'll be no panic buying, just panic. They are panicking now. Celtic are panicking.
Well,
it's as simple as that. And we are in this position now where other clubs' fans, and we've made ourselves a laughing stock. I don't like that. As a supporter, I hate being in that position. We should be better than that. I've said it for bang that, act like a big club drum for so long, and again we've proved ourselves shambolic and amateurish and small-minded and just, you know, honestly, I just find it completely and utterly staggering, bewildering, really. You know, where do we go from here? It just seems that, to use a Malcolm Tucker word, an omni-shambles.
An omni-shambles.
Omni-shambles. Can't use the other one because there's no one attached to it.
Well,
Castro, and you know what comes after that, you know what I mean? So, honest.
Well, on that note, before we spiral further into despair than we already have, I think what we're going to do... Oh, hang on, I'm getting a wee phone call. Oh, that's Eddie, he's coming. No, I'm kidding. No. Before we spiral any further out of control than we already have, we're not going to provide any answers for you guys sitting here. So I think unless we've got anything else to say, we'll probably call it a day for now.
It was just good to give a wee bit of real life reaction. I think, in fairness, the two views, and you know, Tony, I absolutely adore, you know what I mean? I think he's an amazing person, you know what I mean? But it's two different opinions on it. I think the Celtic fans needed that today. I think it's not that all Celtic fans needed it, but you know, if you like the show, it was good to contrast and compare the two mindsets you can take. And Laura, what an anchor you have been. You have done very well, my darling. You've been in the Lions' Den.
What do you mean? There's no lions in here. This isn't a lion's den. What's the quote?
Eddie's just coming for pizza, Laura.
Aye. Well, it's cold. I'll tell him that much.
Yeah, exactly. Aye.
Anyway, thanks everybody for getting involved in our impromptu breaking bulletin. Not the breaking news we were hoping to share with you, but thanks for getting involved anyway. And we will see you again soon for another Celtic State of Mind.